You thought they were quiet. You had no idea. Have you ever stood across from someone and suddenly felt small, not because they said anything cruel, not because they raised their voice, but because there was something in their silence that stripped you bare? That wasn't intimidation. That was a Capricorn, deciding whether you're worth a second chance. Let me be absolutely clear. Challenging a Capricorn is not like challenging anyone else. You may think you're entering a simple disagreement, a debate, maybe even a casual power struggle. But you're not. You're entering a chess game that's already been in motion long before you even noticed the board. There's a reason so many people walk away from confrontations with Capricorns feeling confused, defeated, or forgotten. It's not because Capricorn is cruel. It's because they are precise. Capricorns don't need to dominate you with words. They dominate with energy, with memory, with strategy. And by the time you realize the battle has begun, it's already over. You lost. Quietly. This isn't about fear. This isn't about drama. This is about truth. In this video, I'm going to take you deep into the psychological and spiritual landscape of the Capricorn sign, the one sign in the zodiac that doesn't need to prove they're right, because they already knew the outcome when they first saw your intent. We're not just talking about astrology. We're talking about the real reasons you should never ever underestimate a Capricorn. From their unshakable endurance to the way they weaponize time itself, from their terrifying silence to the long game they play better than anyone. This is not just a warning. It's an initiation. If you've ever loved a Capricorn, challenged one, or been one, you're going to feel this in your bones. And by the end of this, you'll know one thing for sure. Capricorns don't retaliate. They rebuild without you. Let's begin. Truth number 1. The mountain does not move. You can scream. You can plead. You can twist the story, throw guilt, or try to shame them. But when you're standing across from a Capricorn, none of it works. Because what you're facing is not a person who needs to be loud to be strong. What you're facing is a mountain. Capricorn doesn't resist chaos. They simply outlast it. They are the ones who remain when everyone else folds. Not because they don't feel pressure, but because they've been trained by it. Long before you ever challenged them, life already did. Hard. Relentlessly. Quietly. As children, many Capricorns were told to toughen up, to be strong, to get it done even when they were breaking inside. So they learned early on that survival meant becoming their own shelter. And that's what they became. Capricorns aren't known for complaining, because they've already faced pain in silence. And silence made them solid. So when someone comes at them with drama, emotional games, or even hostility, they don't respond the way you expect. They don't lash out or fall apart. They just pause. They hold their ground. They become still. And the stillness unnerves you because it feels like they know something you don't. And the truth is, they do. I once met a Capricorn woman who was overlooked constantly at her job. She trained others, cleaned up behind mistakes, delivered results, but never got credit. People thought her silence meant weakness. Until one day, she handed in her resignation, and the company lost its most irreplaceable asset overnight. She didn't leave in anger. She left in power. And within months, she'd built her own consultancy and hired some of the very people who once ignored her. She didn't argue. She just endured, and then evolved. Because that's what Capricorn does. They don't confront storms with noise. They wait for them to pass and then rise higher than before. Life lesson. You don't need to react to everything that shakes you. Sometimes, your greatest strength is in stillness. Capricorn teaches us that true power is not about shouting louder. It's about building something so steady, no one can shake it. So when the world tries to move you, remember the Capricorn way. Be the mountain, not the storm. Truth number 2, cold logic is their sacred weapon. Most people argue to be heard. Capricorn argues to be understood. And more than that, understood accurately. You'll feel it the moment you step into conflict with one. You may enter the conversation full of emotion, your voice raised, your feelings scattered across the room. But across from you sits a Capricorn, still, unshaken, calculating. What unnerves people most about Capricorns isn't how loud they get, it's how quiet they remain. Because they're not fighting to prove a point. They're listening to find the crack in yours. Capricorns aren't impulsive. They don't need to win the room. They need to win the truth. While you throw heat, they throw precision. While you vent frustration, they isolate facts. While you try to make a scene, they quietly rewrite the script and make sure your contradictions are highlighted in red ink. This isn't manipulation. It's mastery. Capricorn's mind is like a courtroom and a war room merged into one. They weigh everything, track inconsistencies, run mental simulations before they speak. And when they finally do speak, their words are so exact, so undeniable, that it often stuns the room into silence. You won't even realize you've lost the argument until hours later. You'll just feel that uneasy quiet after a Capricorn delivers a simple line like, "So help me understand, when did your version of the story change?" No venom, no attack, just the facts, presented with merciless clarity. And it's not just in conflict. In love, in work, in everyday interactions, Capricorns operate through a lens of strategy and realism. They don't assume. They verify. They don't react. They assess. That's why emotional manipulation doesn't work on them. Tears without logic, accusations without consistency, they'll see through it in seconds. I once watched a Capricorn manager deal with a team member who tried to deflect blame for a missed deadline. While others scrambled to play politics or offer excuses, the Capricorn just opened a file and calmly presented every documented timeline, every email, every agreed-upon task. No raised voice. Just proof. It was over in 2 minutes. The room went still. Because Capricorn doesn't punish with emotion. They correct with evidence. Life lesson. In a world full of noise, be the voice of clarity. Capricorn reminds us that power doesn't always look like passion, it often looks like precision. When you ground your words in truth, you don't need to shout. You only need to speak once. And when you do, let every word land like stone. Truth number 3, they hold grudges with a planner. Some people hold grudges like wildfire, burning fast, burning loud, then burning out. Capricorn, they hold grudges like a ledger. No fire, no theatrics, just facts. Filed, dated, remembered. And this isn't about petty revenge or emotional drama. No, Capricorn's version of a grudge is a strategic archive of who you are when pressure hits. They don't lash out. They log it. They don't explode. They evaluate. And once they decide that you've crossed a line, they don't yell. They remove. Capricorns are quiet collectors of behavior. They observe patterns. They test consistency. And once a person shows them that they cannot be trusted, once respect has been breached, even subtly, they don't need to punish you. They just vanish from emotional reach. They'll still be professional. They'll still be polite. But the door is closed. And it doesn't reopen. I once heard a story about a Capricorn man who was deeply loyal to a group of friends from college. For years, he showed up birthdays, job changes, hard times. But when he faced a sudden crisis of his own, no one called. No one showed up. No one even asked. He didn't make a scene. He didn't guilt-trip anyone. He just stopped reaching out. And slowly, quietly, he rebuilt a new circle, one built on reciprocity and respect. Years later, those old friends still didn't understand what happened. But Capricorn did. He remembered. And he didn't need to explain it. That's how they operate. Quiet consequences. They give space, but they don't forget. They offer closure not through confrontation, but through absence. You may not even know what you did until long after the damage is done. But by then, Capricorn is already gone. Not physically, but energetically. Their presence, their loyalty, their depth, withdrawn like a tide that doesn't return. Because for them, trust is architecture. And when a crack forms, they don't patch it. They demolish the structure and build elsewhere. Life lesson. Forgiveness is beautiful, but so is discernment. Capricorn teaches us that it's okay to set boundaries that protect your peace. You don't have to burn bridges loudly to walk away wisely. Some people heal by talking. Capricorn heals by remembering and choosing differently next time. If someone's absence hits harder than their anger ever did, you probably crossed paths with a Capricorn. Truth number 4, success is their vengeance. Some people seek revenge through anger. Capricorn seeks it through excellence. They don't come back to prove you wrong. They come back so elevated that your name doesn't even belong in the same chapter. Capricorn doesn't waste energy on emotional retaliation. They don't clap back, they don't scheme, and they definitely don't broadcast their moves. What they do instead? They rise. Silently, relentlessly, unapologetically. When you underestimate a Capricorn, when you dismiss them, betray them, or laugh at their ambition, you're not wounding someone who needs your approval. You're lighting a fire under someone who was already halfway up the mountain. And that fire, it becomes fuel. They take every rejection, every insult, every ounce of doubt, and alchemize it into discipline, into results, into long-term, soul-deep progress. No need for loud declarations. No watch me now monologues. Just steady, unstoppable action. Brick by brick, step by step, until one day, you look up and realize, they've built a kingdom you no longer have access to. Imagine someone quietly leaving a toxic job where they were undervalued for years. They don't post about it. They don't badmouth anyone. 6 months later, they've launched their own business. Their former company becomes their client. They never said a word, but the message is thunderous. That's Capricorn. They don't strike back. They outgrow you. And what makes it so haunting? They never looked back to make sure you noticed. They didn't do it for you. They did it in spite of you. Because for Capricorn, revenge is not about hurting you. It's about outlasting you, outclassing you, and evolving beyond the space where you ever existed. You won't get fireworks. You won't get closure. You'll get forgotten. And nothing stings quite like realizing someone healed, thrived, and rebuilt their entire life without ever needing you to see it. Life lesson. The best way to answer betrayal is with boundaries. The most powerful revenge isn't proving your worth to someone who doubted you. It's becoming so whole, so successful, that their doubt becomes irrelevant. Capricorn teaches us, let your wins speak. Let your silence echo. And when they wonder how you did it, don't answer. Just keep climbing. Truth number 5, their silence is terrifying. You expect anger. You expect tears. You expect a fight. But with Capricorn, what you get is silence. Not the petty kind. Not the kind that begs for attention or manipulates guilt. Capricorn silence is something else entirely, something colder, deeper, more unnerving. It doesn't just fill the room. It changes the temperature. Because when a Capricorn goes quiet, it means something irreversible has begun. They don't withdraw because they're afraid. They withdraw because they've already decided what comes next, and you won't be a part of it. See, Capricorns don't process pain with drama. They process it with distance. While others scream to be understood, Capricorn listens, to confirm what they already suspected. And once their mind has clicked into that quiet conclusion, they're done. Not out of rage, but out of clarity. They don't need to explain themselves. They don't owe you closure. Their silence is the closure. I once knew a Capricorn man who was in a long-term relationship. Years of loyalty, quiet sacrifice, mutual growth. But then came a betrayal, deep, personal, humiliating. He didn't confront. He didn't explode. He simply stopped engaging. Still showed up. Still made breakfast. Still asked about her day. But emotionally, he had already left. And when he moved out 2 months later, she was stunned. Because the silence fooled her into thinking he'd forgiven. He hadn't. That's the horror of Capricorn's quiet exit. You often don't see it coming. And when you do, they're already gone. Their silence doesn't scream. It finalizes. In arguments, this unnerves people who thrive on emotional back and forth. If you're looking for a reaction, you'll be unsettled to find stillness instead. The more chaotic you become, the quieter they grow. And that calm, it reflects everything back to you. Your projection, your inconsistency, your noise. And when they stop responding altogether, that's not avoidance. That's a decision. You just weren't informed. Life lesson. Sometimes silence is not an absence of feeling. It's the presence of boundaries. Capricorn teaches us that not every betrayal deserves a reaction. Not every wound needs to be shouted from the rooftops. Sometimes the most powerful thing you can do is leave quietly, not to punish, but to protect your peace. Because silence isn't always the lack of love. Sometimes it's the evidence that love has evolved into self-respect. Truth number 6, they'll outwork you every time. You can be smarter. You can be louder. You can even be more naturally talented. But when it comes to consistency, Capricorn wins. Every single time. You see, Capricorn doesn't chase the spotlight. They chase the result. And while others rely on luck, inspiration, or last-minute adrenaline, Capricorn is already on their 5th draft, working in silence, out of sight, but never out of the game. They don't need motivation. They build momentum. They don't wait for the right mood. They show up, regardless of how they feel. That's their secret. Capricorns aren't driven by external applause. They're driven by internal standards, and those standards are relentless. It's not because they enjoy the grind. It's because the grind is where they feel alive. I once met a Capricorn entrepreneur who told me something I'll never forget. People think I'm addicted to work. I'm not. I'm addicted to progress. That's Capricorn energy in its purest form. You might see someone who's always working late, declining invites, never posting their wins on social media. What you're actually seeing? A builder. Someone who's planting long-term seeds while everyone else is chasing quick fruit. By the time others are burned out from sprinting, Capricorn is just getting started. They don't rush. They don't crash. They climb. Steady. Methodical. Patient. And that makes them dangerous, not in the flashy, obvious way, but in the unshakable way. Because while others are looking for shortcuts, Capricorn is laying foundation. While others are celebrating halfway, Capricorn is quietly mapping the next milestone. And by the time you realize you're in a race, Capricorn has already crossed the finish line and started training for the next one. Life lesson. The world will always reward the consistent over the gifted. Capricorn reminds us, you don't need to be the fastest. You don't need to be the loudest. You just need to show up every day with discipline and intention. Because talent gets you noticed. But work ethic, that gets you remembered. Truth number 7, they know your weakness before you do. They're not loud. They're not flashy. But they're watching, always. Capricorns are emotional analysts disguised as practical people. While others are speaking, oversharing, reacting, Capricorn is observing and recording. They scan people like blueprints. Every inconsistency, every nervous laugh, every time your confidence slips or your tone betrays you, they catch it. You might think you're clever, that your facade is airtight. But to a Capricorn, you're transparent. They won't call you out right away. They'll file it, store it, wait. Because to them, knowledge isn't power, it's protection. They're not looking for ammo. They're looking for patterns. To know if you're safe, if you're stable, if you're real. And when the moment comes, when you challenge them, betray them, or try to twist the truth, they won't retaliate emotionally. They'll just hold up a mirror and reflect your own weakness back at you with terrifying accuracy. It might be one sentence, a quiet look, a single, piercing truth. But it'll land like a blade, not because it's cruel, but because it's correct. I knew a Capricorn woman who had been quietly watching her partner's excuses for months. She never confronted, just listened, tracked the lies, the contradictions, the subtle patterns of neglect. Then one day, she simply said, "You only show up when you're not the problem, and that's why I don't trust your love." There was no argument after that, just silence. Because when a Capricorn exposes you, there's nowhere left to hide. They don't fight to hurt you. They reveal to teach you. But they only do it once. Because after that, you're no longer part of the plan. Capricorns don't weaponize your emotions. They expose your blind spots. And they do it not to destroy you, but to make sure you never mistake your illusion for truth again. Life lesson. People who truly see you aren't always the ones who speak the loudest. Capricorn teaches us that awareness is power, and silence isn't ignorance, it's intelligence. So when someone stays quiet but always seems to understand more than you've said, you might not be talking to a person. You might be talking to a mirror. Truth number 8. Respect is non-negotiable. You can disagree with them. You can challenge them. You can even fail them. But the one thing you cannot do to a Capricorn is disrespect them. That's the line. The unspoken, unwavering boundary. And once it's crossed, it's over. Capricorns don't view respect as some optional courtesy. To them, it's the foundation of everything: love, loyalty, trust, collaboration. Take that away, and the structure collapses. Here's what most people don't realize. Capricorns can endure pressure, survive betrayal, and even forgive mistakes. But the moment they feel mocked, minimized, or lied to, they disengage. And they won't announce it. They'll just leave emotionally, long before they leave physically. I remember a Capricorn man who had been dating someone for nearly 2 years. They were opposites in many ways. He was grounded, she was spontaneous. It worked, until one evening during a fight, she sarcastically said, "You're just boring and predictable. No wonder no one takes you seriously." He didn't raise his voice. He didn't walk out. He just paused, and something shifted. He still showed up after that. Still polite. Still attentive. But the light was gone. And a month later, he was gone too. No explanation. Because he didn't need one. That's how Capricorns handle disrespect. They don't seek revenge. They simply stop including you. You may think they're being too sensitive, but that's where you're wrong. To a Capricorn, respect isn't about ego. It's about alignment. If you don't respect their effort, their boundaries, or their values, then you're not in integrity with them. And they refuse to build anything on unstable ground. That's why when you lose a Capricorn's respect, you don't just lose access to their time. You lose access to their trust, presence, and energy. And those are not things they ever give lightly. Life lesson. Never confuse patience with passivity. Capricorn teaches us that respect is not something you demand, it's something you demonstrate. And once it's broken, don't expect them to yell. Don't expect them to chase. Just expect silence. And absence. And a door that doesn't open again. Truth number 9. They're built for the long game. Capricorns don't sprint. They don't chase temporary wins or burn out trying to prove a point. They pace themselves for years if they have to. Because they know something most people avoid. Success that lasts takes time. While the world obsesses over viral fame, overnight wins, and instant gratification, Capricorn is laying bricks. Quietly. Methodically. Without applause. They're not interested in the fast rise if it comes with a hard fall. They'd rather be underestimated now and unstoppable later. You might not notice them in the beginning. They don't crave the spotlight. But 5 years from now, they'll be the ones quietly running the show. Capricorns understand something sacred. Quick success often collapses under its own weight. But slow success, that's architecture. That's legacy. I once knew a Capricorn woman who worked at the same mid-level job for nearly a decade. No drama. No complaints. People asked her, "Why don't you go somewhere flashier?" She just smiled and said, "Because I'm building something no one can take from me." Behind the scenes, she was earning certifications, investing, writing quietly at night. And when her moment came, she didn't just get promoted, she skipped 3 levels and launched her own division. No one saw it coming. But Capricorn did. She'd been preparing for it all along. That's the thing, Capricorns are never just waiting. They're planting, studying, structuring. So when their time comes, they don't just step into success. They own it. They aren't built for trends. They're built for timelines. They know every shortcut has a cost. And they'd rather climb the mountain slowly on their own terms than risk collapsing halfway. So when you try to challenge them, ask yourself, are you prepared to stay consistent for 10 years without validation? Because they are. Life lesson. Lasting success isn't about speed, it's about stamina. Capricorn teaches us that when you honor the process, the outcome takes care of itself. You don't need to rush. You just need to build. And trust that if it's truly meant to last, it's worth taking the long road. Truth number 10. They turn pain into power. Some people break under pressure. Capricorn builds under it. Pain doesn't stop them, it sharpens them. They don't just survive hardship. They weaponize it. Capricorns have a strange relationship with pain. Not because they enjoy it, but because they understand it. They know life isn't always fair. People disappoint. Circumstances shift. And instead of crumbling, they convert that pain into structure. Heartbreak becomes strategy. Rejection becomes resilience. Loss becomes laser focus. Where others collapse in crisis, Capricorn creates a blueprint. They internalize the lesson, make no excuses, and start designing their comeback stronger, smarter, colder, and more dangerous. I once met a Capricorn man who was raised in a home where praise was rare and expectations were relentless. He wasn't coddled. He wasn't celebrated. So he built validation from within. By his mid-30s, he'd built a successful career, owned multiple properties, and mentored others who were raised in chaos like he was. When I asked him how he stayed so focused despite the emotional weight he carried growing up, he said, "Everything that broke me taught me how to build. I just had to stop looking for comfort and start looking for meaning." That's the Capricorn way. They don't wear pain like a wound. They wear it like armor. Not to intimidate, but to endure. They don't need to talk about what hurt them. They remember it. And then they transmute it into fuel, into focus, into forward motion. While others wait to feel ready again, Capricorn is already moving. Not out of denial, but because they've accepted the truth. The world doesn't stop for your pain, so you learn to move with it or fall behind. Life lesson. Pain is inevitable, but what you do with it defines who you become. Capricorn reminds us that hardship can either harden you or forge you. You choose what kind of strength you build from your suffering. So don't waste your pain. Shape it. And let it shape you into something that doesn't just survive, but rises. Truth number 11. They control the chessboard. Most people play checkers, fast moves, reactive thinking, hoping to stay one step ahead. Capricorn plays chess. Silently, strategically, 5, 10, even 20 steps in advance. They don't act out of impulse. They act out of design. And by the time you realize what just happened, they've already repositioned the board. Capricorns don't seek control for the sake of ego. They seek it for stability, to build a life they don't have to constantly rescue. That's why they analyze everything: people, timing, tone, motives. They're not paranoid. They're prepared. What unnerves people about Capricorn isn't how they speak, it's how much they don't say. Because when a Capricorn goes quiet, they're not retreating. They're observing, calculating. And when they do move, it's precise, permanent, and often poetic. I knew a Capricorn woman who was undermined at work by a colleague who smiled to her face while sabotaging her projects behind the scenes. She never confronted. She never tattled. She just kept collecting proof, kept documenting, kept showing up with results. Months later, when upper management reshuffled departments, she submitted a quiet proposal outlining systemic inefficiencies, naming no one, blaming no one, just providing solutions. The result? She got promoted. He got transferred. She didn't get even. She played the board. That's how Capricorn moves. Not with drama, with direction. They understand the ripple effects of every decision. They know when to stay still, when to exit, when to circle back. They don't announce their plans, they unfold them. So when you think you've outmaneuvered a Capricorn, be careful. You may have only seen their opening move. And while you were celebrating the first round, they were already winning the endgame. Life lesson. Power doesn't always look like dominance. Sometimes it looks like discipline. Capricorn teaches us that real control isn't about controlling people, it's about understanding the landscape so deeply that you can shape your path with confidence, not chaos. You don't have to rush your next move. You just have to know the board. Truth number 12, they're ice-covered volcanoes. Capricorns are often misunderstood as cold, detached, emotionless. But that's not the truth. The truth is, they feel everything. They just don't show it. Not because they're numb, but because they've learned that not every emotion deserves exposure. That some feelings are too sacred, too volatile, too powerful to be handed over carelessly. So they lock it away. They bury it under logic. They freeze it beneath responsibility. They build their life on top of it. And from the outside, they look calm, like nothing ever touches them. But deep beneath that stillness is pressure, heat, rage, hurt. A volcanic core waiting for the one moment when everything reaches its limit. And when that moment comes, when years of restraint give way to a final truth, they don't erupt in chaos. They erupt in finality. No yelling, no breakdown. Just the quiet, surgical ending of whatever or whoever can no longer coexist with their integrity. I once knew a Capricorn who stayed in a one-sided friendship for years. Always giving, always showing up, always swallowing the small betrayals. Until one day, after a particularly cutting moment of disrespect, she stood up mid-conversation and said, "I don't do imbalance. And I don't explain goodbyes." She walked out and never responded to a single message again. That was the eruption. Not loud, but irreversible. Because when a Capricorn finally explodes, they don't burn bridges. They erase them. Not from malice, but from clarity. They've carried the weight long enough. And when they decide to let go, they do so completely. Their explosion doesn't come from ego, it comes from exhaustion. From years of biting their tongue, showing grace, and choosing peace over pride. Until the silence breaks. And everything changes. Life lesson. Emotional control isn't the absence of feeling, it's the discipline to protect your inner fire. Capricorn teaches us that just because someone is quiet doesn't mean they're unaffected. And when a boundary is crossed too many times, even the most composed spirit will choose self-respect over silence. So when you stand in the presence of someone calm, contained, and grounded, don't mistake their stillness for softness. Because beneath the surface, a mountain can move, and a volcano can rise. Final summary, why you should never challenge a Capricorn. So now you know. Not just the traits, not just the stereotypes, but the truths, the ones people learn only after it's too late. You learned that Capricorns don't break, they endure. They don't shout, they calculate. They don't forget, they log. You saw how they turn silence into a weapon, how they build in the dark, and how success is their quietest form of vengeance. You watched them walk away without a word. You felt the sting of their absence where closure should have been. And you saw what happens when discipline, pain, memory, and purpose combine into a force that doesn't just survive challenges. It transforms them. Capricorn doesn't seek to destroy anyone. They seek to become someone so stable, so self-defined, so completely free, that no betrayal, no doubt, and no disrespect can shake what they've built. Because what they're building isn't just a life, it's a legacy. So ask yourself, have you ever challenged a Capricorn and thought you won, only to realize later they had already moved on without you? Or maybe, you are the Capricorn, the one who doesn't ask for applause, who endures in silence, who burns behind the stone face. If so, this story is yours. Your strength isn't loud, but it's legendary. Life lesson. Power isn't about control over others. It's about control over yourself. Capricorn teaches us that the most dangerous person in the room isn't the one who reacts, but the one who remembers, recalculates, and rises without warning. If this spoke to your soul, if you saw yourself, or someone you know, in these 12 truths, don't keep it to yourself. Subscribe to Zodiac Secrets Revealed for more truths that go deeper than signs. Tell us in the comments, what's the most Capricorn thing you've ever done or witnessed? Have you ever underestimated a Capricorn and lived to regret it? Let the world know. Capricorns don't seek revenge. They seek evolution. And that's why you should never challenge one, unless you're ready to meet someone who already knew how it would end.